Welcome to our webinar on Revenge of Capital and Projects, a full life cycle walkthrough of going from ideation to capital project to fixed asset using Oracle Fusion Cloud and Oracle Cloud Enterprise Performance Management. Chloe and I are excited to walk you through our webinar today, and we presented this at ODTUG Kscope 25 in Dallas, Texas, back in July of 2025. I'm an Oracle Ace Pro and a senior director within our Oracle EPM practice at Alithya. I lead our EPM solution architecture team. I started my career building financial systems in the Boston area and learned how to implement Oracle EPM, planning, BI, and ERP. And fun fact about me, I wrote a book during COVID on best practices around budgeting and forecasting for the CFO. If you're interested in that book, you can find it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
My name is Chloe Harfield. I'm a solutions consultant focused on Oracle ERP. And one of the fun facts that's not listed about me, I've been at Alithya for 4 years. And in my first week, David and I were at a team on site in Connecticut. And his souvenir for the week for me was his signed book on the principles of planning. So I can attest that there's a lot to learn coming out of that book and a lot to learn from this series that we've put together on capital projects. Like I said, I've been with Alithya for about 4 years now, focused on ERP pre-sales support. So end-to-end, anything that happens in the ERP, including projects and Accounting Hub, seems to fall to me. Based in Austin, Texas, before coming to Alithya, I was an ERP solution engineer. So if we have any Oracle members listening in, that was, what I did in a past life. So very excited to bring together, what we can do on the project ideation side and how we can really build a strategic capital project approach and bring that in from CPP or from EPM into Fusion and capture and track all those costs in one spot.
Thanks, Chloe. Chloe and I both work for a consulting company named Alithya. We're based in Montreal, but have operations throughout the world. We're part of a bigger 4,000 employee practice, but our practice that delivers Oracle products, we really specialize in one thing, delivering Oracle business applications. So anything to do with Oracle Fusion ERP, supply chain, Fusion HCM or payroll, the enterprise performance management capabilities, or Oracle Fusion CX. We're really proud to have over 450 employee-based consultants and a large number of Oracle Aces on our team. Our webinar today is really going to cover 5 parts. Part 1 is going to be the big picture around the struggles people have around having an integrated capital and project process within their organization. So we'll give some of the background of the pain points that we see. Then I'll take section 2, where we're going to talk about going from ideation of having all the different people within your organization come together and figure out what are the investments they want to do over the next couple of years, and then take that portfolio of potential investments and actually submit them into a governance workflow using the Oracle Cloud Enterprise Performance Management technology. In part 3, Chloe is going to walk us through that once we have an approved capital project, how can we use Fusion ERP, both the project portfolio management and financials capability, as well as procure to pay to track real-time costs in Oracle Cloud and initiate the procurement lifecycle. Finally, in section 4, we're going to talk about how can your project managers and project owners on an ongoing basis use the Oracle Cloud to forecast the estimate to completes for their projects. And then finally, in part 5, Chloe and I will wrap it all up with some thoughts on how you can get started and some case studies around this solution. With that, let's get into section 1. Welcome to part 1 of our 5-part webinar. In this section, we're going to talk about the big picture around capital and projects and what we see at our clients. Okay, so the elephant in the room. Chloe and I originally gave this presentation at Kscope 25 in Dallas, Texas, back in July, and we definitely had a movie tie-in here. So the elephant in the room, where did the title for this session come from? And it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek about the movie Revenge of the Nerds, which was an 80s movie. And if you've not watched it, it's a little bit not safe for work, but it made for a great session at Kscope 25 to ask some trivia from the movie, like what actor ultimately went from this movie to starred in the show ER, and it was Philip Seymour Hoffman. So the tie-in for this presentation, and here's the stretch that we had the premise for. Capital projects and procurement, we like to say, are often the forgotten business process. We have customers that come to us that are spending hundreds of millions to billions of dollars of capital spent per year, and they're managing this in Excel. And a lot of our customers are spending multi-million dollars implementing new ERPs, new HR tools, new performance management tools, and somehow the process that's actually approving these mega projects that are going to change the direction of your organization, they're doing it in Excel. And that's really where the opportunity is, and where we've had success with our clients of really deploying Oracle Cloud Enterprise Performance Management, the planning platform, along with Fusion ERP's procurement and project financials capabilities to give capital its revenge in the organization with process controls, automation, and integration. And we like to say, if you are listening to this webinar, there's a good chance you might also be a nerd and really into procurement, project accounting, project execution within your organization. So welcome to our webinar. To set the stage, if you've ever wondered, how do organizations decide what projects to take on? How do they decide where to spend their next dollar to grow their businesses? And how do you go about prioritizing all the possible investments you can go and make and all the different opportunities you have? And everyone is always challenged by the combination of funding capacity, time, effort, scope, attention within the organization, resources in the organization. And most organizations, whether they're going from building a project, implementing a back office cloud system, to even buying basketballs, most organizations I've worked with always starts out as a request form. Whether you're spending a couple million a year, 50 million a year, 100 million, billions a year, most organizations are still doing it with some combination of request form, whether that's a request form that lives in Microsoft Excel, Teams, SharePoint, Word. We've seen them all, but generally managing capital requests, when you're living in email, Excel, and Word, it really doesn't scale. And ultimately, the risk is it's very difficult to get visibility into what are all the different investments people are trying to make across the organization. Do we have competing investments? Can I search what people are trying to get approved, and so on? And so really the organization risks spending their limited capital investments on potentially the wrong things, and just the customer service around using email and Word and Excel request forms to improve billion-dollar capital project or billions of dollars of capital projects isn't where we should be with the current capabilities that we have in the cloud. So ultimately, people are making big expensive purchases using Word and Excel. Doesn't have to be that way. Do any of these sound familiar? We like to ask people, how do capital requests get submitted in your organization today? I mean, we see it all, whether it's SharePoint, email, a ticketing system, maybe like Jira or ServiceNow, Word templates, Excel, different Teams forums and things like that. We've seen it all. But the real benefit is replacing certainly these mechanical forms, but bringing it into an integrated business process. So that's what we're going to be walking you through today. Chloe and I are going to be walking through each step of the process. And really the hub that we're going to take you through is really the ideation hub. We call it capital programming. And this is really where Oracle Cloud Enterprise Performance Management shines. So collecting all the ideas in the organization, going through the request process, getting those out of Word and Excel, using those requests, submitting them into a workflow that goes through different levels within your organization, up to your different capital committees, ultimately up to your board of directors if necessary to set your capital budget. And then drawing those capital budgets throughout the year, authorizing funding to spend with capital projects, and then monitoring the 360 view of your financial projects. That's really what Oracle Cloud EPM can provide us. Once we go through that, Chloe is going to talk to us about how do we use Oracle Fusion Cloud to provide the back office to support our capital projects. So everything from, once a project is authorized to begin and has a budget, how do you create that project code in Oracle Fusion Cloud? How do you open purchase requisitions, open POs, collect all the costs, whether that's time and labor, capitalized time, obviously purchases for equipment or supply materials, and then ultimately get to the point where you have a completed project and put that project into service. And then lastly, we're going to talk about in this webinar how, as that project's going on, every organization has different project execution and forecasting needs. And as we look at different groups within an organization, your IT teams are probably using tools like PlanView or Clarity or Jira to actually manage the operational details, the tasks, the due dates, the resources around their capital projects. If you have a construction organization where you're out there building things and you're managing different vendors and contractors, we'll see a lot of Oracle Primavera, Procore, Kahoot, and in a lot of organizations to actually manage and track their projects and build up the details, we see a lot of Excel. So we're going to show one of the other modules that Oracle provides as part of the Oracle Cloud EPM suite, which is called EPM Projects, which really gives us the ability to plan the resources, the projects, the costs surrounding an in-flight capital project. And so if we bring this all back together, we're going to walk you through how can you set your capital budgets and authorize spend? How can we tell your back office tools that there's an approved capital project that procurement can begin? We're going to tell the capital programming tools, hey, how can I, what's the spending? What are the open POs? What are the commitments? What's been received? And bring that back into the capital programming process. And so within Oracle Cloud EPM, you can see all the projects within your organization, what's been budgeted, what's been committed against those projects, what's actually been paid from an invoice perspective, what's left on the project, and initiate changes. The last piece is really making sure that you have a capability to compute the estimate to complete on all of your projects in the organization. And so we're going to show you one way that you can do that and allow your project managers to actually come into the Oracle Cloud and build up their estimate to completes for their in-flight capital projects. And so the capital programming tool, again, can tell your project execution tools, hey, what's been approved? Your project execution tools, people are going to go out and hire vendors and hire contractors and build up project plans and assign resources and tasks and schedules. But ultimately, what they can give back to the capital programming solution is, hey, what's the estimate to complete for that project? And so ultimately, you get the 360 view of all of your capital projects in one place. And we're going to walk you through that today. So the capital lifecycle, where we go from idea to asset, basically starts out where you have an idea, and that's really the request forms and having people, in most organizations, people will start building, spreadsheets in each department saying, hey, this is what I know I need to do this year, what I need to do next year. Here's the equipment I need to replace. Ultimately, several times a year, most organizations have a process where they take different pieces of that backlog and submit them, for approval. So, hey, what are the big projects we're going to do next year? We're going to use that information we'll go back and forth and negotiate with everyone to set the capital budget. Ultimately, we'll get to the point where we're ready to initiate that project and we want authorization to spend. Then we're going to start the procure to pay process where we're going to open up requisitions. We're going to issue POs to vendors. And then we're into project mode, right? We're going to buy things and we're going to build things and we're going to go and we're going to have a bunch of CIP on the balance sheet. We're going to pay invoices as they come in. We're going to want to keep an eye on the financial health of our capital projects. Just as we were saying, what's been approved, which projects are at risk of going over budget, which ones are under budget, can we redeploy funding, and which ones are coming close to going into service, and should we be able to shut them down and put those assets into service, and so on. So we're going to walk you through each box on our process here and give you a little glimpse of how you can pull this together with Oracle Fusion Cloud and Oracle Cloud Enterprise Performance Management. Thank you for watching this first part of our webinar. If you'd like to learn more, please reach out to either Chloe or myself, or email infosolutions@alithya.com. Welcome to part 2 of 5 of our webinar that is an expose on looking at how you can go from ideation all the way to an in-service capital asset using Oracle Cloud. In part 2, we're going to talk about the project ideation and governance process using Oracle Cloud Enterprise Performance Management. When we're looking at most of our clients and when they're struggling with the ideation process in most organizations, hey, what are we going to invest in for equipment purchases next year, big IT projects, new facilities, new manufacturing facilities, new distribution facilities, and so on. It's usually all in different combinations of Excel and email. Oracle Cloud Enterprise Performance Management is the perfect tool to drive the ideation, request, and budget setting process and get everyone working from a common cloud-based application. As an example, a manager in a facility needs to request $100,000 to replace a piece of equipment next year. What capabilities do you need to do this within a cloud application and make it really easy for people? First off, when we need to be able to deploy this capability very easily to leaders in the organization. It needs to be cloud deployed, usable on tablets, laptops, and so on. And it needs to be easy to use with no training. Click a video if you need an explanation on how to enter a capital request, and it needs to be available 24/7 by 365. There's always equipment that needs to be replaced or new projects need to be started. It has to be very easy that when people know that they need to ask for funds to initiate a capital project or equipment purchase, they need to know what to click on and where to go. And for this part of the process, Alithya built a no-cost accelerator to handle the capital request process. And we created this turnkey capital programming process. We call it CPP, short for Capital Portfolio Planning. And what it does is it supports a bottoms-up capital request form. So just like your Excel and Word-based ones, but in a tool that everyone can work from. So people fill out all the parameters of the project, the title, the justification, the different reporting tags. They'll fill up the investment side of the request as well as the OPEX side of the request. So is there going to be a pickup in revenue, an adjustment to margin, a change in our SG&A expenses if we make this investment, and then being able to route those capital requests through a flexible workflow. And you can see here just an example of being able to print out one of those capital requests in a really nice PDF that you can drop into PowerPoint. The second use case that we're able to deploy in Oracle Cloud EPM is that 24/7 continuous project authorization and budget drawdown throughout the year. So once the capital budget is set, which might be an annual process, say, hey, this manufacturing gets $10 million, facilities gets $1 million, IT gets $10 million. Once you go through that process, the other side of it is actually allowing projects to start. People may have justified a project during the annual budget season, but it could be 6 months later, 9 months later. When people are ready to actually initiate the project, they come back into the capital programming application and say, I'm ready to start. They click on that, what they might have justified during budget season, and they actually draw down the budget and ask for a project to get created, which also goes through a workflow. And when that project gets created, it goes into, communicates to your procurement tool and says, it's okay to allow this project to start opening purchase requisitions, and it has a budget of X, and we're off to the races. And then use case 3 is really that 360 project monitoring that we talked about, which allows you to look at the actuals versus budget versus what's been committed, what's been actually paid out from an invoice expense perspective, and what's the estimate to complete on your projects. So I have a little demo here just to walk you through what it looks like. So this is our capital portfolio application. I'm logged in as a user, and you can see that there's a number of different easy to use icons that your different managers and directors in the organization can log in, manage requests, manage in-flight projects, manage their capital budgets, manage approvals if you're on an approval workflow. Very easy to understand. So we're going to click into, I believe, the manage requests tab here. So I'm actually looking at my sandbox as a leader within an organization. Every leader that needs to request capital would have access to this tool. There's security, but really I'm going to pull up my list of potential investments in my sandbox that I've been curating all year long. So I'm going to search for my, I found my IT department. Right here you can see all my different projects and investments that I've submitted, and each one of these represents that request form that might have been in paper or Word or Excel in the past. I can right click on each one. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to the different pages of the form. So here we're looking at one for a new irrigation system. I can see the operating impact for that capital request. One of the nice things about Cloud Enterprise Performance Management is it is multidimensional and it has multi-year intelligence. So you can see a lot of times when people are doing this in Excel or Word, just the multi-year nature of it doesn't come across. Here we're able to capture both the total amount of the investment as well as the time-phased amount of the investment. And as it goes through approval, we're really implicitly approving both what's the timing of the investment as well as the total amount. So I built up my request. I've submitted it for approval now. My director can see it. I can see all the different things about it. I can approve it, reject it, promote it further in the hierarchy. So I'm rejecting it here. And the person that submitted this will have received an email saying that their request had been rejected. So if you'd like to learn more, please reach out to Chloe and myself or contact us at infosolutions@alithya.com.
Good afternoon, guys, or good morning from wherever you're at. My name is Chloe Hartfield, and I'm an ERP solutions consultant for Alithya, here to take you through the next piece of bringing together the real-time cost in Oracle Cloud Fusion projects, especially when it pertains to the revenge of capital and projects. So I know that Dave was able to kind of set the stage with what's the big picture around what we see from our client base in the marketplace on the goals when it comes to capital projects, capital requests, and how can we take really, what you guys have done when it comes to the project ideation, prioritization, and then translating all of that into Oracle PPM to actually capture those costs and create a centralized view of all the different projects that you guys have going on. Oracle Fusion is purpose-built to take all of the transactional activity, whether they're coming from subledgers that you guys are already leveraging within Oracle, like procurement, payables, or expenses, or if we're capturing costs that may be submitted through time and labor on the HCM side, as well as uploading or bringing in any miscellaneous costs that need to be pushed against these projects. And really at the root of it, what we see from organizations is that once you guys have a process for how do we define and prioritize what capital projects that we're going to take on in a fiscal year, whether you're looking at short to long term, how do we define and set the budget for those projects and provide an authorization to spend? What we see sometimes when we meet with clients is that they are tracking project cost and project spend in an Excel spreadsheet, or it's pushed against certain different point solutions, and they don't have a centralized view where, one, they've made the decision to move forward with certain capital projects, but two, to see all of those costs and have true governance and management against those costs, and ultimately beyond that, take it another step further through accounting for all of those project cost transactions and translating all of the cost captured against a capital asset, pushing that into fixed assets and capitalizing it. So we're going to take you through some high-level capabilities that you're going to be able to see when it comes to creating real-time tracking against the spend. So we take it a step back, look at the process at a high level. You go through the capital request process and you get your approval. The organization decides that it is an objective to move forward with this capital project that you have a budget to spend $100K against. Let's say we're building a new facility on site, one of our locations, and we want to be able to actually come in and say, against the $100,000 that we have to spend for this project, how do we centralize all of that cost capture, with costs coming from procurement, time and labor, maybe there's miscellaneous costs coming that need to be uploaded through a spreadsheet, and then how do we manage all of those costs, and then when it's time to actually put that asset into service following the completion of the build, how do we then go and take all those costs captured and depreciate that asset and fixed assets. So we'll walk you through kind of step by step, costs getting collected, items put into service, as well as at each of the different points where you're going to be able to see the actual impact of these transactions on your general ledger. So one of the critical parts of this process is how do we create a centralized view of all of your projects? So these projects would be approved through EPM and integrated into your Fusion ERP. Within your projects, you're going to have tasks. And within those tasks, you're going to want to be able to define where costs are going to be defined to your asset for those tasks. So this could be your green HVAC system. And that's going to be a part of your 100K budgeted project. So once we have kind of the structure set and integrated in from EPM, we define the asset, and here we can see a high-level cost breakdown of the different type of costs that will be pushed against that task and capitalized against that asset. We can see transaction numbers of actual cost, and even beyond that, we can see committed costs coming in from procurement. These costs may not be realized at the moment, but we want to be able to actually track actuals and committed costs so that we're going to be able to see at a high level how we're targeting against our budget. If you want to take it a step further, you're going to be able to see high level transaction number information. We hover over and each of these line items are costs, this one coming from payables, and we can see this is rolling into the task. Additionally, from a centralized view, you're going to be able to see costs coming in from time and labor that were submitted through your organization's time and labor application. Wanted to take this a step further and get a little bit more detail into each of these separate costs. The drillability that you're going to be able to see and the governance you're going to have is that in one spot, you're going to see invoices coming in, and then take it a step further, all from that project cost view. If you want to see the actual purchase order that was submitted and matched against this AP invoice for us to pull those costs through and track committed through actuals, you're going to be able to have that high level drillability. One of the other things I like to highlight here is the ability to see distributions that are going to be associated against the lines that were costed against each of these transactions that will ultimately roll up into the capitalized asset. Going back to our page, you're going to be able to again see the culmination of all these different costs coming in. One of the other things that I like to highlight here when it pertains to Oracle is the ability to actually look at and run capitalized interest. What you'll be able to do within the system is the system will be able to look at, the different balances coming in and sitting in the CIP asset account set against and running to create an interest expenditure based on an interest rate that you would define, and those costs will then be captured and rolled through, just like any of the other costs coming from the subledgers. Additionally, the system's going to allow you to actually generate capitalizable interest, which is going to be driven by a couple inputs, right? So the system is going to be able to look at all of the eligible CIP balances that are coming from the accumulated spend sitting in CIP for a project or a task, and you're going to configure an interest rate schedule, and that will then allow you to generate a cost transaction that will roll into your fixed assets CIP account, and this capitalized interest will actually roll through with the fixed asset, just like all the other costs coming in from the different subledgers or coming in from time and labor. And so this is a process that you can set to run just as another control in how you configure the system to essentially capture all the related costs as it pertains to each of these different assets. And we can see as project execution picks up, goods received, timesheets submitted, invoices approved, all of that activity reinforces a single source of truth. Finance really does become your backup, your validating capitalization and ensuring that every dollar ends up where it belongs. Now, this next milestone in the process really shows the asset that's been capitalized and transferred into fixed assets. We can drill in and actually see the costs that were captured moving into the right account on the balance sheet to begin depreciation, and we can see the clearing of those costs that were captured in the CIP account credited out. From here, what you'll be able to do is actually drill into the asset, and we can see some of the translation of attributes that were captured when we put this asset and aligned it to a task to capture cost against. So when we created the asset, we defined the category, and we can see that this has been translated into a capitalized asset. costs have been captured, and we can base this and create a depreciationable basis where, for this instance, straight line depreciation method is applied, and we can actually go in and see the expected depreciation and the accounting per this specific period being generated and ran based on the costs that were captured. Additionally, one of the benefits of leveraging projects is the ability to actually track all of the project spend coming from different sources across your Oracle system or even outside your Oracle system, to where we can see the different expenditure types, the quantities, the CIP costs per each of the lines that roll up into the task. If we wanted to take this even a step further, where we could see costs that were coming in from a subledger that's configured within the system, you're actually going to be able to come in and see supplier information, the different quantity types, and the CIP cost here as well. So from there, we can see the full summation of, all the costs that were captured, those related back and capitalized per the asset, and then the asset now depreciating as a capitalized asset. Really, the value of what this means back to our earlier storyline is that, one, the business gets frictionless execution. Two, finance gets accuracy and relief when it comes to reconciliations across cost capture. And then once that's all approved and translated down into the asset that's been capitalized. And finally, the CFO gets confidence that governance is structured and in place and not guessed. Together with EPM, this creates one lifecycle process from idea to execution to asset, and everything's fully connected. If you'd like to go a little bit deeper, whether into spend governance, project accounting automation, capitalization frameworks, or additional drill through reporting that's available through, for you when it comes to Oracle ERP and projects, we'd love to continue the conversation after the session.
Welcome to part 4 of 5 of our walkthrough of how to use Oracle Cloud Enterprise Performance Management and Fusion Cloud to automate and streamline your whole business process from going from ideation, capital project to in-service asset. In the past few sections, in section 2, I walked through how you can go and have your frontline managers actually build up their own portfolios of potential investments using Oracle Cloud Enterprise Performance Management. In section 3, Chloe walked us through how to use Oracle Fusion Cloud project financials and procurement to actually capture, track, and authorize spending for different capital investments. And finally, I'm going to walk you through one example of how you can manage project execution for your project managers to generate estimate to complete using an Oracle provided with Oracle Cloud Enterprise Performance Management called Projects. So to review, in the various parts of the webinar, we've talked about our capital lifecycle going from idea to asset. So we started with the idea of creating ideas, which are those investments that all your different leaders within the organization want to invest and purchase different assets, whether that's this year or next year, over the next couple of years, including things like your master facilities plan, strategic roadmap, technology plan, taking those, turning them into formal requests, setting the capital budget, drawing down the capital budget, and actually starting the procurement process within your procurement tools like Oracle Cloud Fusion, which Chloe walked us through. The act of actually buying, spending, collecting those costs, paying the invoices. And now we're getting back to the process where you're going to have a set of project managers in the organization that are going to be using different project execution and project forecasting tools based on who they are in the organization. Oracle Cloud provides a financial project forecasting tool that can be used to allow your project managers to come in once a week, once a month, and update their forward-looking spend on their capital projects to generate revised estimate to completes. So we're going to walk you through that in this next section. Oracle Cloud Enterprise Performance Management Planning provides several pre-built modules. And when you subscribe to Oracle Cloud Enterprise Performance Management, it is a per user per month fee. And then you get access to all the modules to make up Oracle Cloud Enterprise Performance Management. Within the planning pillar, you get access to a financials module, which allows you to build an integrated P&L, balance sheet, cash flow statement, do driver-based planning, trend-based planning, machine-driven plans. It allows you to build a labor forecast using its wizard-based workforce module. So that allows you to plan by employee, plan by job code, either using driver-based or primarily by using driver-based planning. So we need to add several people. We need to take several people out of the organization, being able to flow out, what does that do for our compensation-related expenses, and flow that in to the right places within your P&L, within your forecast or your budget. Oracle provides a CapEx module. So this is a little different than what we've been talking about, but if you have a need, if you have a weakness around your fixed assets module or fixed assets ledger from an accounting perspective, you can actually flow in all of your in-service capital assets, and this module that Oracle provides can actually generate the forecasted depreciation for your in-service assets. And lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about the projects module and how that can help your project managers forecast ETC, the estimate to completes for your in-flight capital projects. Oracle Cloud EPM Projects provides your project managers a facility to forecast ETCs on the projects they own. I wrote a recent article. If you want to take a screen, look up this QR code that's out on LinkedIn, which really is a deep expose on the Oracle Cloud EPM Projects module, but basically driving project financial visibility with Oracle Cloud EPM Projects. It is a wizard-based module, so if you bring in a partner like Alithya, we'll sit down with you and walk you through the different choices that Oracle provides within the wizard, so we're able to create the dimensionality, the granularity, what kind of projects you want to forecast, and what are the characteristics of those projects. We'll actually go through a wizard-based setup process, create the application, do some configuration. Why it's so great, it actually includes out-of-the-box integrations with Oracle Fusion Projects, which Chloe showed in the prior section. So it's very easy to get the spend at a project or expenditure task level into this tool. And again, the key differentiation here is this provides a financial view by project. So what is our spend by type of spend over the different phases of your project? Is not meant to act as a project management, project scheduling, or project contracting application. But there is value here if you are asking your project managers to build up individual project forecasts. This gives them a vessel and a tool that can be spun up very quickly. And if you just look at some of the screen grabs here, very easy, intuitive dashboards, easy web-based access to update their forecasts for their different projects. I have a quick video here, so we'll walk through. So if I am logged into the projects module, click projects, you can see all of my projects. I can look at the expenses, I can analyze projects. Security is enforced, so as a project manager, I only see the projects that I have access to. As I move up through the organization, certainly I can only see with projects that are within my sphere of responsibility. So we're going to look at my projects that I have in my space. Again, easy to use dashboards. I can see the FTE being consumed by our projects, labor hours, the expenses across my different projects, spend, and so on. So very intuitive to just analyze and drill into the characteristics of all the projects. So I'm going to actually pick up a specific project that I'm responsible for. I think it is our new digital web module. So I picked up and accessed one of the projects that I'm responsible for, and you can see here, I can see all the different expense lines within this project. I can see what we've already spent, which is grayed out, and I can also look out into the future. So in the capital programming process, we actually set hey, what is the budget over time? What I'm looking at now is I can actually come in here and build up the forecast for those projects and update them. I'm actually going to pick my project here. New digital signage. And I can see all the expenses as I had previously forecasted and the actuals, update the estimate to complete based on my plans, and that'll roll into our broader planning process. So what we've seen here is we've had a project manager come in, look at the health of the projects within their space, update the estimate to complete for their project, and now it is updated. So the sum to complete this project based as of today is 160,000. We've spent 85,000. I've updated the cash flows, and now that's rolled into the rest of our budgeting process. And that link back to the capital programming process, hey, maybe this project now is forecasting that it's going to go over budget, and we can actually start the change control process for people to ask for additional funds and make sure that we have the governance and controls around just having a project go over budget like this. Thank you for watching this section of our webinar. Again, please reach out to Chloe or myself or email infosolutions@alithya.com. Welcome to part 5 of 5 of our webinar that is walking us through the capital lifecycle from idea to project to capital asset across Oracle Cloud Enterprise Performance Management and Oracle Fusion Cloud. In this final section, we'll just have some tips and tricks on pulling a business process like this all together. We've had a ton of success. If you can hear the excitement of us just talking about this, bringing Oracle Enterprise Performance Management and Fusion together to support very large and complex capital programs. Generally, when we talk to people about and see, hey, they come to us and find us, whether they're Oracle customers or not, when they've outgrown having an Excel-based capital program where just the tracking, the administration, all of it usually falls on someone within the finance organization. And as just a point where we see, hey, it's time to put a system in, generally capital intensive, so they'll have large facilities or a large technology program. But generally, the key metric is somewhere between $100 and $150 million in annual capex is where, hey, the pain and the risk of making a mistake is so great that now it's time to put the controls in the system in place around it. You're outgrowing Excel's, emails, SharePoint, and that's basically leading to bad internal customer experiences. And it is very tough on that person or a couple of people within finance where all the request forms come in. They have to get taken up to the different capital review levels within the organization. The reporting every month on where are we to actual the budget and projects that are over budget and shifting money from the left hand to the right hand. It gets very tough on finance, but it's equally bad on your internal customers. When I worked in a technology team within a large retailer, I remember filling out my request form in Word, emailing it to someone in finance, and not having any idea where I stood in the process. Would I hear back in 3 months, 6 months? Who was reviewing it? Had anyone seen it? And it was just not a great customer experience. And if pulling it into the tool, it makes it easier for your customers to ask for funds. It makes it much easier for them to understand where they stand in the process. And it gives the organization, a modern way to administer and track all of this. One case study, we recently worked with a retailer that had over 2,000 locations and $2 billion of CapEx, and it was all being run in Excel. And luckily, they had implemented Oracle Fusion Cloud, projects and financials, and they were looking for the other side of it around the capital program and project forecasting to really round out the business process. Case study 2 and case study 3. Case study 2, we recently rolled out this solution for a distributor who had a huge fleet and warehouse network across the United States. And really, they had around $750 million of annual CapEx, specifically around equipment purchases, equipment configurations, and their warehouse distribution facility network. And finally, we've deployed this solution to several healthcare institutions One that comes to mind is a teaching hospital that has had a $5 million 5-year capital program. And a lot of that spend was certainly, the routine medical equipment replacements and the life cycle around medical equipment. There's certainly a large amount of technology spend planned out over the next 5 years. But most large hospital systems have a incredibly large real estate and facilities footprint. So this included building several new strategic facilities, renovations, equipment upkeep, and facilities upkeep across their organization. If you'd like to learn more, I'd be happy to walk you through any of these case studies on a phone call. Deploying this within Oracle Cloud, there's a number of different business cases and use cases that need to get deployed across and many boxes. This can look very confusing. And we call this our capital reference architecture. And the important part is not so much what are each one of these individual boxes. The important part is just acknowledging that it's complex, it can be overwhelming, and what most of our customers do is they fix one of their use cases and they move on from there. So it's really, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with fixing the procurement use case, the project forecasting use case, your request forms and prioritization and governance, or somewhere else? And we can certainly help you. A lot of our customers will start with a short assessment and a roadmap. We can actually lay out, what are the different steps that you need to go through to get the value and streamline your business process. If you'd like to learn more and really geek out and go deeper on everything we've talked about, recommend you take a look at our Capital Programming Learning Kit. We have in-depth videos and demos. We have blogs, articles, and how-tos on how you can simplify your capital programming process from idea to project to in-service asset. Encourage you to follow the QR code to learn more. With that, I want to thank you for joining our webinar on how you can deploy Oracle Cloud Enterprise Performance Management and Oracle Fusion Cloud to streamline your ideation project to in-service asset for your capital programming. If you have any questions, please reach out to Chloe or myself, or email infosolutions@alithya.com.